Hello, everyone. I'm LaSherde Scott, the CEO and president of Scott Center for Observation, Treatment, and Transition. And today I am going to have a special guest. So she will be coming on momentarily. So just bear with us for a moment. We were having some technical difficulties. So just bear with us. All right. I am sorry. We are having some technical difficulties at this time. Just bear with us a second. I'm trying to get Miss Elsa on the line here with us tonight. Like I said, this is going to be a really good conversation. So I'm looking forward to it. Just give us about 2 minutes and we should have her on the line. All right, we are trying to get Elsa on our call. So viewers, just please bear with me. I will have her on momentarily. So just bear with me here. All right.
I don't know who that person is.
That's me. It's me.
Okay.
Put your. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and add you in now.
All
right. Okay. Elsa, go ahead and unmute yourself. You're muted. Let me see. Unmute mic. There we go. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yay! Success!
I'm not gonna let technology take us out of here today.
Technology technologying.
So, without further ado, audience, let me introduce you to Elsa Franco. She's a compassionate leader and marketing consultant with nearly 2 decades of experience in retail marketing, community and public relations. She has fundraising behind her, but more importantly, she is a mother of 2, one being a sickle cell warrior himself. Um, I mean, I can go on and on about Elsa, right? So
So
I'm telling
I'm sitting here
you,
like, can I just crawl under the chair now?
it's okay. I am so happy that you came or that you agreed to join me tonight. I just think that it's important for us, especially mothers of warriors or warriors themselves, but definitely parents who are in this field, and not by choice. We didn't technically choose
I
this field. It
know.
kind of
We
chose
were
us.
handpicked.
So I think that as I told you guys in our little promo, nothing is scripted. We did not think technology was going to give us this type of situation today, but I have you here, Elsa. I want you to just kind of share your experience or your first thought when you found out SJ had sickle cell.
First and foremost, I want to say thank you to you and your audience. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your patience. So I did my first live on the series that we talked about yesterday, and same thing. It was like these technology issues. It's like, why? But this is gonna happen. Hell, come hell or high water. So thank you for your patience and waiting for me. I appreciate it. And what was your question? I'm sorry. I'm like so excited.
No, you're fine. So basically, I just, I think this is a question that doesn't get asked in our community. Like, what was your initial reaction? Like, how did you process having
Woo.
a child with sickle cell disease?
Well, that's a loaded question. First and foremost, I did not know anything about sickle cell. I did not know I carried the trait prior to the pregnancy with SJ, my 7-year-old. As Lashade had mentioned, I'm a mom of 2, so I have a daughter who's much older, and so when SJ came, it was at that point that I found out I had the sickle cell trait. And then there's the, oh my God, could dad have it too, because he didn't know that he had the trait either. So there's the whole surprise of like, oh my God, I've been living life ignorantly all these years, and I'm in my mid-30s at this point. So it's like I've been living life ignorantly all my life, and now you're presented with something. So you go through, we knew that there was a 25% chance that SJ could be born with sickle cell disease. I chose to live my pregnancy in ignorance, meaning that I chose not to. Once I started doing the research, it was grim. There wasn't a lot of hopeful information, and I wanted to concentrate on having a healthy pregnancy opposed to living in my head about what could potentially be if he had sickle cell. It was a big if, but if we happened to get that diagnosis when we did, then we would cross that path when we get there. Um, you say that, you think that, you live as that in the moment, and then that day of the diagnosis comes, and for us it was a week after. He was born on August 21st 2015. And I know you have, like, we're the 2015 crew. A week after, so he's born on the 28th, we went in for his first appointment, and the pediatrician came in, with with the clipboard and just opened the door. Dad sitting down, baby's laying down, I'm standing up. He comes in and I'm like just sitting here. So it looks like the newborn screening came back and the baby has sickle cell disease. In that moment, like my entire life stopped. And I can honestly say I heard death sentence. And it was, don't cry. So I talked to myself in third person. Don't cry, E. Don't cry. Don't cry. The more I told myself not to cry, what felt like a forever, it was probably 10, 30 seconds. The floodgates came down and it just, I will never forget that feeling. I will never forget those words. I will never forget that day. I remember exactly what I had on, what he was wearing, what he was doing when I heard the news. That day is forever etched in my brain. So my first experience with sickle cell was just a bit traumatic. So from there, the pediatrician did proceed to say that, you shouldn't get too worried, because even though he was very abrupt with it, he yet gave me a little bit of hope, and because he also does some work within the sickle cell community, and he has a company that they're working to do work to find cures and treatments for sickle cell patients. So he gave me hope in that sense. But initially, that was my initial introduction with sickle cell, and then the next few months it was just trying to adjust to life, grieving the life that I thought I was going to have for this child. So I had to recalibrate my whole life to learn this child. Now, what does this disease look like? How does it present in him? Is he crying because he's unhappy, or is he crying because he's in pain? Is he swollen? It's the constant getting to know the belly, so you know where the spleen is, or if the spleen is enlarged. So you become obsessive in those first few months, and then yeah. So it was
Yeah.
traumatic. The first couple of years was traumatic, to say the least, in getting the news, learning about him, learning the disease, all of that, and trying to find a community in the midst of that, because I did not know anyone with the disease. I'm the only person in my family that has the trait. Same with on his side of the family. So we, until this day, have never met anyone else like within our circles that actually have sickle cell disease. So it's been a learning process for sure.
So, okay, so I heard everything you said. So did you know your status prior to having a child?
Nope.
And your husband didn't
Not
know either?
until, no, not until, it was until SJ. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I speak on this all the time. I feel like our community is so uninformed, which we should not be. Let me be very clear. And I get so upset because even in my own situation, I knew a young man in my high school who had sickle cell. Never had I done any type of research. I didn't ask him a lot of questions. It was not until I had my first child with sickle cell. He was actually one of the first people I reached out to because I was just so nervous, and I'm just like, what am I gonna do? And
Yeah.
see, my way of finding out was different from you because I originally reside in Michigan,
Okay.
but live in Ohio. I
Mm-hmm.
had my baby in Michigan. A doctor called and told me over the phone. So that was the worst. And by this time, my son was 2 months.
Wow.
For 2 months, I didn't know,
Big
that
bliss.
he had.
But I wonder if that's a little bit better.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I don't know. I don't think it's better on either end. Personally, I feel
There's no good about any of it.
I always state, like, you find out you're pregnant, you're super excited. You're getting ready to bring this life into the world. You want to give this child everything. And then boom, it's like a Mack truck just kind of hit me because I thought I had prepared myself. I asked, do you have sickle cell trait? He was not aware because he wasn't tested. It wasn't mandated in Michigan till 1987.
Did
It
you know
wasn't
you had the
mandated.
trait?
I did.
You
I
always
did. I
had
knew.
the trait.
I've always known. But I think I believe the schools have done a disservice. And you can correct
Yeah.
me if I'm wrong.
No,
This
because
is why
in knowing you have the trait and knowing how it could potentially affect you in the future, which is where
absolutely,
I believe the disservice that where the disservice starts, right?
absolutely. Yes. I think what I believe is that the school should be pushing this issue for students to know their status. We know typically, let's just be realistic, high schoolers are having sex, more than
Yeah,
likely. But I think they downplay sickle cell trait like, oh, it's not disease, as if it's nothing, as if it
yeah,
doesn't matter. But they fail to realize when you put two individuals with sickle cell trait, there's a possibility of having a child with sickle cell disease.
yeah,
And then, furthermore, we look at race. So we know Blacks are predominantly affected by sickle cell disease. However, we are not the only ones. So
mm-hmm.
here in the Toledo area, it's very diverse here. You got Hispanics, Latinos. It's very diverse.
Yeah,
Okay, so the schools are diverse. There's a lot of different races within the school. So I make it my I've made it my mission to make sure that I'm educating in the schools because I feel that's where we have to start. Um, even if they don't understand it now, it eventually clicks.
yeah.
Like,
Having
oh,
that knowledge base is so important, for the simple fact that without trait carriers, there's no sickle cell. And without sickle cell, there's no trait carriers and I don't want to say, and I don't know if it's thought of this way. And I'll share a quick little story. Like there's a young lady that I had met in a clubhouse room, a warrior, who was kind of coming down on a parent who both of them knew they had the trait, but still chose to create a family. They're married. That was part of their destiny. They didn't know initially, but and before they knew, they were aware. And it's like, well, how dare you? But yet this warrior had a child, and it's like, your child, as a warrior, your child automatically is passed on the trait. You have every child has
yeah,
a. So it's like, how can you come down on somebody for choosing their family planning and their life and their love this way when you've essentially chosen the same thing? Because no matter what, and not that one is better than the other, like, oh, I get a 25% chance, you get 100% chance of trait. Do you know what I mean? And like, it's
right,
not comparison, but it's the education aspect of it that I think people, and I don't think that she actually was trying to be completely ignorant to the fact that every child that you create and you have created carry the trait.
right,
Do you know what I mean? So that education component is so, so, so important, because not only does it help in family planning, but as you and I are both aware, especially we're in this advocacy space and we're communicating with other CBOs and other advocacy groups and legislators and all of these other people, we're in the medical community, we're learning that the trait is not benign. There are critical things that can happen to someone carrying the trait that is not talked about, that has been dismissed for years and years. And that needs to be touched upon. So it's not just a reproductive aspect of it or in family planning, but how about the person themselves? Like, one who may be exerting themselves can find themselves in a lot of trouble if they don't know that they have the trait and not taking the proper precautions to stay hydrated and all of these other aspects of it. Or even renal medullary carcinoma, which is a kidney cancer that primarily affects people with sickle cell trait. So all these aspects, and I don't want to like take over, but again, this is a candid conversation, right?
Yeah, it's not an interview. We're just two girls having a conversation. We have that connection.
So for me, when I start thinking about the basics of it, like there cannot be sickle cell education without trait education, and vice versa. Like they go hand in hand. Like you can't even say hand in hand. They're almost like fingers in palms. Do you know what I mean? Because they should go like this. Because, hand in hand, I guess one hand can work separately from each other, but sickle cell and trait shouldn't. They can't.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll land that plane there because I'm super passionate about this area. And one thing that like people will realize about me as you get to know me, once I get passionate, I can get going for quite a bit. But I'll land that plane there and let you chime in and get your thoughts on that aspect of it, and how you've seen it in your own life. Has it presented any issues for you specifically?
I wouldn't say issues. I mean, if we want to take it to
obvious, producing children with sickle cell, so that's a major issue.
I was thinking more so. So I know that the NCAA has made a requirement for individuals who are playing sports at the collegiate level to have their confirmatory testing.
Mm-hmm.
So their newborn screening results need to be given to the team that they're going to play for, right? Due to overexertion and dehydration, we know that individuals have died because of sickling.
Absolutely.
So if I had to say anything, I would say I've probably experienced fatigue from sports, because I was athletic. I did cheerleading pretty much all my life. I just thought it was a tribute to just doing other things because I've always been a busy person. So, I wouldn't medically put it out there, but I will say just sitting back and just thinking on some things could be a possibility. But I think people don't even understand, like, even like I can't scuba dive, that, well, you can't either because you have trait. So scuba diving,
high altitude,
Colorado, that is out of the question for me. So there are things that are a tribute, or that we need to be mindful of having trait for sure. But I think, like I said, I want to take it back. Our community, and this is what I was getting to, our community is so uninformed because people are not having those conversations on what's going on with sickle cell, right? Mm-hmm. You have a few here and there, and this is why I wanted to have this Let's Talk Sickle Cell series. I want it to be authentic, so when people come on, they can talk about their experience. So, for instance, and now I want you to engage on this conversation with me.
Now we're going deep.
Yeah, we're about to get real deep. So, Shane, we were already living in this household like COVID. So when COVID happened,
my favorite topic.
It was a norm for this, at least the Scott household.
This was the best thing that happened because it got the rest of the world in line with our world.
Right.
That's how I feel about COVID. I've been living it. I mean, literally from August 28th, 2015, I kept him in a bubble. Luckily, it was still summertime. We had our own, we had a pretty large backyard. So it's like we can get out, but he's still a baby. You don't take a baby out like that. But whatever we needed to do was very We had all the space that we needed to do what we needed to do. If you had the sniffles, you coughed the wrong way, you sounded a little nasally, I heard a little rattle. Excuse me, sorry, you can't come over. Yeah. And I was that militant about it. From 2015 to 2020 March, I was militant about who came around my child. He lived a productive, so I'll say this too. One of the things that we were really intentional about is not allowing sickle cell to run our life. We knew that it was going to change our lives dramatically, and we quickly became aware of the unpredictability of it. So what we also had to learn to do is live in the moment while sickle cell was not an issue. So we lived. When I tell you, like, everything that we could do, because we don't know when the next pain crisis is going to come or when he's not going to be well, we try to do everything. So by 2020, when time came, it was like, oh my God, the rest of the world is forced to wash their hands. We didn't wear a mask, but we kept them pretty secluded. We kept them pretty, we did things. We still lived, but cautiously. We still did everything that we would do with another child, but we were very careful about sick people. All of the things that most people are doing with COVID, we were, again, like you said, already doing, and that was a part of our lives. So COVID actually made it to where it's like, yes, the rest of the world is following suit. We get clean people everywhere.
Yes. I mentioned that because I don't think, like, people on the outside that's not living in your household, I don't think they really understand the levels to, I mean, my schedule is already packed. I'm a very busy woman. Let me be very clear. So,
we know. We know.
On top of that, on top of all the things I have going on, managing children with a chronic disease, and then I have and I have two, but I also have a child that does
not. Times.
Yeah.
You know what? Let's take a second. Let's pause right there for a second, because I'm throwing roses stages full of roses at you, because I don't think people one is crazy enough to have to do it 2 times or with multiple children.
Yeah.
My hat's off to you moms that have to deal with it with multiple children. And I don't mean it, that I don't mean that in any disrespectful when I say deal. Because not only one takes a toll on your personal, your physical, your mental, and then you add 2, and then you add 2 boys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's a physical aspect of sickle cell that people don't talk about. We gotta be strong. Carrying that dead weight at 7 years old. My son is 4 feet tall. He's 4'4", 56 pounds. So when he's completely not able to move and we've had to take him to the hospital, we're carrying dead weight. Like, he's all legs and arms. And if dad's not around at that moment when the pain hits because it doesn't give you a warning, like, I'm forced to physically carry this child. That takes a lot on a person's body when they're constant. So then with 2 boys, my hat's off to you.
I appreciate that. It is a lot. But I believe I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Absolutely.
Some people wait their whole lives trying to figure out what it is that they should be doing. but my children literally gave me my purpose. It's so funny how that works, but they literally gave me my purpose.
Yeah.
And, because I went all these years not, advocating for something that impacts our community. And I keep saying I was going to get back to this. So here we go. The things that impact our community. So sickle cell disease, prostate cancer, all of these things. And like I said, I'm not trying to minimize other, diagnosis.
Yep.
But I believe because we are so uninformed on this particular area, it gets swept under the rug. I remember I did a community outreach here in Toledo. And I remember somebody telling me, someone of color told me that, oh, I don't know nobody with sickle cell. I said, that's what you think. But they may be suffering in silence because we know 1 out of 13 African Americans are diagnosed with sickle cell trait. So 1 out of 13 of your friends has sickle cell trait.
Yeah.
You break it down like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then we know 1 out of 365 births, there's sickle cell disease.
Yeah.
So I rolled the dice and I got it twice, right? And I don't mean to laugh. You gotta
find prepared for this. God
wasn't
prepared the path for you for this. And I think we discussed this. Even in my own journey, I often feel like, wow, Lord, you got a funny sense of humor. Ha ha. Ha ha.
It's so crazy because we always hear all the negative stories about sickle cell, but there are thriving and surviving sickle cell warriors. I mean, I have conversations with them all the time, and I'm just so amazed at the things that they're doing. So, and I always make this comment, so I'm gonna apply to everything, but I always say, when you're a parent and your child doesn't inspire you to want to be better, not even just for yourself, but for them, then there's an issue.
You're going to start preaching on us?
I preach, but I'm just saying that.
No, that's good. That's good.
I believe, because sometimes we are not always prepared to have kids. When I say we, I mean, I'm saying anyone. No, no one is fully prepared. I believe that.
Absolutely.
But, when you go through this and you're like, okay, I'm pregnant, or this could be dad, they're getting ready to have a child. Your mind is centered around what that's going to look like. But then you get that surprise of that diagnosis. And it's like, I did feel like at one point I had ruined my son's life. I do not feel like that now, but I did. And that is why I think I'm so deeply rooted into making sure everything that I do is centered around building some type of foundation for them and for generations to come. Because know that there's a lack of, and that's how Scott was created, but we know that there's a lack of transitioning for sickle cell patients. We know
that's so scary to me.
Yeah.
And I know this to you because we have to come to grips with the reality of, like, we're raising young Black boys, and the world is especially cruel to young Black boys.
Yep.
And that never broke my heart more than in 2020. And I think that's what really, that was the catalyst of my entire life really shifting in terms of like career goals and life goals and sickle cell and everything. Like, it had already changed in 2015, but like looking at this, what my son's life could potentially look like, and then starting to add all the different layers that comes with sickle cell, what he'll need in the future, how will he be, all of this and all of that, like, that broke my heart.
So to piggyback off that, So we speaking on just how they are in the society, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, right now, our boys are saying this cute, innocent, right? Because they're pediatric
Yep.
care in pediatric care. So what is going to happen when they get older? Because we know the stigmas that are associated with sickle cell disease. And the thing that blows my mind is that they start them, and when I say they, the doctors or they prescribe them medication that is, really high in dosage. I know that most patients need that. I do know that. But I also believe in alternatives first. I always try to do things.
Let's figure it out at the lowest and the most natural. Let's build up as opposed to the base is the strongest thing possible.
So then when they do that, so here's my issue. So you start, let's just say they start on Percocet. Because I do know some kids on Percocet. You start them on Percocet. Let's say they're 8 or 9. What is going to happen when they become 20, 21? What is the regimen? Because when we talk about pain management, just all this is where my mind goes to. Like, we know that pediatric has all the bells and whistles. That's really what I believe. Bells and whistles. So they're good at the pediatric level. It's that transitioning piece that's missing. It's missing in this community. But the rest of these the rest of the diagnoses that do not primarily affect African Americans, they have centers that help them navigate through the system.
Don't get me started on that.
So honestly,
I've actually noticed the cystic fibrosis, and this again, we're not comparing diseases, but our past 2 hospitals. So we were at Tufts Children's Hospital, and this is another issue, how they are choosing to just, and I know in several states, a lot of children's hospitals have been closed down. So in our state, the hospital that we had always been with was one of them. But just before they closed down, which I had never noticed before, just as you're going into the pediatric hematology department, there's a large wing, the cystic fibrosis research and care. Darn. All right. We moved to a new hospital this November. We go for our first appointment. As we're walking to the new hospital, Boston Children's Hospital, huge center to the right of the hospital. Cystic, such and such name, cystic fibrosis research and care center. Like, where's the sickle cell centers?
They actually have a database, and we do not. We do not have a national database for sickle cell. Not even for sickle cell. So that's what I'm saying. They say there's no funding, but there could be.
There could be.
It's the fact on where do you really want to spend the dollars?
Yeah.
Where do you really invest this money? And like I said, I'm not. This conversation, I told you, I have to be authentic. Okay, so
absolutely.
This is what I want. I want to spark
the interest. Scott, while we're talking about money, real quick, I mean, the sickle cell industry, from a pharmaceutical perspective, it's slated to be like a $2 billion. I'll get you the exact numbers and I'll get you the article, but like a $2 billion industry by the year 2029. That's in what, 6 years, 5 years?
Yeah.
So do with that information as you may, but just know that there's a lot of people that have high stakes in that industry. So educate yourself, learn what you need to learn.
Yeah.
That's a deeper conversation for another time, but you get what I'm trying to say.
I do. But I say all of this to say, because we're gonna wrap it. I want to talk about your social media, so we're gonna tie this in. I say all of this to say, if you are a person of color and you are watching today, you need to be informed of your sickle cell
Absolutely.
status, right? It was not until 2006 that it was mandated, throughout the United States for everybody to be tested. But I think that it's important for us to have these conversations because there may be a friend suffering in silence that you may not even know have sickle cell disease. Like I said, I knew that young man had sickle cell disease. He never talked about it in school. It was mentioned once, and I don't know how I remembered that, but when I found out my son had, or when my son was diagnosed with sickle cell, he was one of the first people I reached out to.
How was
I think it's
reception?
huh?
How was his reception to you reaching out to him?
He was very open, but shockingly, he was very open. But when we were in high school, he never talked about his diagnosis. At least not to me. And I'm not gonna say I was the closest to him, but we were pretty cool. I've never really heard him talk about it. Okay. So I changed that narrative when it comes to my kids. I empower them to tell their friends. As you know, we have the children's book that was written, and it's free on Amazon, so you can download it if you need anything. It's called What Dr. Sherney Taught Me. That book is in my kids' school. So every time they move up a grade, they read that book because I want their classmates to know. I want them to want their classmates to know while they're missing school. As you know, my son just had a crisis and he was out of school for a week. But his classmates, they understood. They knew what he was going through. So when he came back, everybody showed him love. They didn't. Yeah, it's just that. And I mean, they're in first and second grade, but I think, and this is a part of transition. And this is where that transition. So I'm pretty sure your son knows his medications, what he takes, or what dosages. He knows what type of sickle cell he has. Like I said, this is all the start of transitioning. But see, we are different type of parents, and this is not to shame anyone, but I feel like our boys are very, very lucky to have us, as we are lucky to have them. But they have us because we are educating them, we're empowering them, and with that, they're going to go off to do great things. Yeah, in spite having a diagnosis, it's not going to define them. I think it's going to enhance the things that they do in the future. So who knows? We might have a doctor, we might have a lawyer, we might have astronomer. We don't know who they are.
They're person who finds the cure. There's somebody. They're out there.
Absolutely. But I want to tell our audience, because we got 10 minutes, so I want to spend this 10 minutes on like strictly your social media. Tell people about who Hope Affliction is. This is how I found you. So I really want to showcase.
Thank you. So Hope and Affliction really started as a project of obedience. As I mentioned before, I did not know anyone with a disease. So getting information or trying to find community was really, really tough. The first year was really, really hard on me personally as a human being. In retrospect, because I feel like almost everything for me in sickle cell happens after I've climbed this spot, kind of had time to sit back, reflect, and it's like, oh yeah. So in retrospect, I realized I was super depressed. But in trying to find a space just to get to know other moms and get to know other children. So one of the things that I did not want was the shame that was attached to sickle cell, the stigma that was attached to sickle cell. Much like you, I wanted my son to be proud of who he is despite or in spite of his sickle cell diagnosis. Like, he's not his sickle cell. Yes, he has limitations, but you decide what those limitations are. You get to test your body and put your body to its limit, test it and see what you can do. So we never limit him in any way. Everything that they've told us not to do, we've pushed the envelope just a little bit to make sure that it's no one else is playing God in his life, but God is being God, and we're allowing him and just kind of teaching him how to live well with this disease. So in that space, where I couldn't find anybody, I had really felt led by God to create a space for other people, because I knew that, well, I felt that I wasn't sure if I wasn't the only one. But then, so I started to get to know people, and you learn that, wow, this is the story of so many people. So Hope in Affliction was born out of a desire to help other moms and warriors to get to know other people within the community, sharing our stories so that we can, what we know is that resources are lacking, funding is lacking. So there's many things that so many of us are learning on the fly. So how about we create a community that we're exchanging information, exchanging resources, and just coming together to uplift the voice of the community. So that has been my heart. And it's just to connect with other moms and warriors, and just to amplify the voice of the communities.
So I love it. I love it, love it, love it, love it. Tell our audience where they can follow you at.
So it's at Hope, HOPEINAFFLICHTION, Hope in Affliction, on Instagram. We do have a website, so we have a ton of things coming up, actually. I don't want to get ahead of myself. I don't like to get too far ahead, but we do have a website coming up. So I do have workshops and a bunch of things, but it's not quite all there. So that'll be coming up. So if you guys go to the Instagram page, which is the main site where we're publishing content at this point, I will be announcing. Yay, there you put it up. Woo, love that. Thank you. I just noticed that pop up. Yeah,
Yes,
so go
yes.
follow. I try to teach about sickle cell, or educate so my goal is never really to educate the community, even though the community needs it, but I try to put content out where the masses get to know about sickle cell. So I try to educate how I like to learn, like the most basic, like give me the basic of how all of this work, and then put it all together. So that's how I kind of try to put out content. And I really just have a desire, even in my professional life. Like, I've always worked in a space where I've helped other people. So I have a true heart and passion. I'm a giver, a heart and passion to help the community. So that's what I do here. So please stay tuned, come follow, and I'll be sharing more information as time goes on.
Once again, that is her handle for IG, Hope and Affliction. I am
Yeah,
so happy that you came on today,
I'm happy
and
you're happy.
this was really, really nice. Like I said, I didn't want to do interview type questions. I just wanted us to really just have, that candid conversation and see what comes
Yeah.
from it. And yeah. So the audience is watching. You guys subscribe to the YouTube channel, Scott Center OH at YouTube. You can follow me on Facebook at Scott Center for Treatment, Observation, Treatment, and Transition. Excuse me. I'm just really excited to showcase you today. As many may not know, this is Women's Month as well as Social Work Month. So I am showcasing women, like I said, and that's doing some trailblazing things in the community for sickle cell. So next Friday we will have Mia Robinson. I am so excited. Do you know Mia Robinson, Elsa?
I don't know her personally, but through the advocacy space and the conferences that I've seen her, I've heard her speak through a couple of conferences over the last year. With
I'm
us,
excited to have her on here. Yeah, she's amazing.
Hashtag Sickle Cell Awareness 365. So
yes,
I know, I don't know of her. Yeah, so she's kind of a big deal in the sickle cell circle. I love her. I can't wait to catch it.
Yes, I'm looking forward to her. So she will be on next Friday, the 10th at 6 p.m. Same platforms, like I said, you don't want to miss these conversations. And I know her conversation is going to be totally different from what me and you talked about. So absolutely. I'm just really excited. She is a warrior, but not only is she a warrior, she is the bomb.com. That's just where I'm at. Like, I have so much respect for her. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to having that conversation. And then, of course, we have other trailblazers. I'm not gonna give them all the juice this segment.
Keep them coming.
I want them to come.
Get a little secret, get a little shoulder, take it back. But you gotta keep it.
Yes, so we are going to have some fun. And I just want to tell the audience, stay informed, stay tuned. This is not the end. Sickle cell, we are going to continue to have these conversations
all year long.
Period. And
all year long.
Yes. Yep. So it's not just a month or a day for us. It's every day.
No.
All day.
2023 is a new year. We're all on a roll. We have to step on the gas. We have to step on the gas. But thank you. Yes. I so appreciate you. I appreciate your patience in the beginning with the technical issues. I appreciate you finding value in the content and what I share to bring me on to your audience. I don't take that for granted because your audience, it's like your home, like you're bringing a stranger into your home. So I do not take that lightly at all. I appreciate you. I cannot wait for you to come into my home because you have an amazing story that needs to be shared. And I equally love and support you and want to shout you from the rooftop.
Thank you. And once again, to follow Elsa, this is her handle. Thank you again, Elsa. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. And I'm kind of a comedian sometimes, or at least I think. So you might get some like comedic effects in there. But thank you. I appreciate you. Have a good night.
No problem. See you later. Bye, everybody.